Well, you know what they say, third eye is the charm. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up, let's see if I get this right, 3 orders from Third Eye Comics. That's right, I received 3 different shipments from Third Eye Comics, and I've been buying some comics from them. I say some, and I hesitate because they are retailer incentives, yes. I have such a love-hate relationship with these types of comics, as I think many of you do as well. But I have really limited my purchasing on these to the retailer incentives that I really want. And I say really a lot because I'm really trying to justify this for myself. What I try to do is use a couple of online sources for retailer incentives and try to be as strategic and as tactical as possible instead of just blindly buying whichever retailer incentive books are available to me, which is what I used to do with Things from Another World, where it was almost like if I was able to find any retailer incentive, a 1 in 10, 25, or 50, I was trying to buy them as often as possible. And now I am passing on many that are available, and I wait, and they do end up being available and easy to find later on for much less than ratio. But I think that while the argument is out there that most like store exclusives and retailer incentives are misses, I do think I at least have one hit in one of these orders, hopefully multiple. But of course, it's up to you and me as collectors to kind of determine whether or not these are, in fact, collectible, desirable books. And I'll be going through those momentarily. Now, I do have a little bit of a channel update. I've got some new videos in the works that I wanted you to be aware of. How I purchase retailer incentives from a couple of those sources that I mentioned. I'm going to be doing a video on this topic exclusively for Moneyball Comics channel members. So my channel members can be on the lookout. Those videos that are exclusive to them, they don't become public. So those are only available if you sign up for membership by clicking the join button under this video. And you can always go to my page on YouTube for more information about how to become a Moneyball Comics channel member. So that will be dropping shortly, so that you can see how I set up a process for finding retailer incentives online. And just a reminder, as far as the schedule update goes, every Tuesday, my 650 video drops, and that is the 6-month retrospective on the top 50 comic books that have held their value after 6 months of their release date. And then I'll be starting a new series called Most Wanted, that's going to highlight the most wanted comic books, the most sought after books by collectors, where it's not just about the keys and the grails that we all kind of know. It's kind of a behind the scenes look of the most wanted comics for a particular title, character, creator. But I'm looking forward to putting those videos, the most wanted, together, and the first episode of Most Wanted will be releasing soon. I don't have an ETA on that, but I think that'll be pretty fun to look at which books online collectors have added to their want list and are seeking. As always, thanks for your support, and now let's get to the unboxing of these 3 orders from Third Eye Comics. Okay, I'm all set to open up the 3 orders that I received from Third Eye Comics. Typically sent in like a Gemini mailer. This one came in a large padded envelope. All sent standard via USPS. With Third Eye, what you can do is you can kind of load up your order, and I think it's $5 shipping flat, which is really cool. So it's not the free shipping that I love, but if you're going to order a number of books and you get them for $5, it's really not too bad of a deal. So it's time to get these opened up. Okay, so that was absolute madness. Third Eye Comics, if you ever stumble on one of my videos where I open up an order from you, please, I beg you, tape pulls. Charge me an extra dollar, $5. I don't care. Add tape pulls to the painter tape, please. I have to dig in and essentially create my own tape pulls. So the way that they package the books, if you didn't see that from the high-speed unboxing there, is that there are comics in between 2 or 3 extra comic boards on each side, and then there's painter's tape around 4 sides. And what I end up doing is I have to peel with my fingernail the one piece of tape, and then I grab the first backing board and I hold the comics down so that they don't bend and come up with the pull of the board, but I push down on the comics themselves, and then I yank the top board back, which rips the tape. But I have to put my other hand down to make sure that the comics stay flat. So there's a lot of risk involved with even opening an order, and I'm buying comics. I'm not buying that many, but they're all expensive incentives. So I wish there was just a better way to do it. And really the simplest way, it's packed very well, but just use tape pull so I can just tear off all 4 pieces of tape pretty quickly. I just refuse to cut through the tape because I'm afraid I'm going to slice through the spine or a bag, and whatever. It's done. It is well packed. It's just difficult to open, and I appreciate the fact that they do pack the books well, but just wish there was a little bit more of an understanding that this has to be opened up at some point. But let's get to the comics, because these are some fun books, I think, some interesting books. And let's start off with this incentive from World Tree, and this is World Tree issue 5, and this is the 1 in 25 retailer incentive with the cover art by Walsh. And this one, you can still find this very easily. I decided to pre-order it at full ratio price because I thought the cover was really cool. I really liked that. Kind of speaks to the whole story, and as a reader and collector of the series, this one was just kind of a must-have. But a good example of one that you could have just been patient on, and you can find this anywhere for a lot cheaper under ratio. But happy to add World Tree 5 to my collection. And now this one is an example of something that I think that ended up being a good purchase, a good idea to pick up at the time. And this is Immortal X-Men, number 15. And this is the Joshua Sway Swaby variant with Emma Frost on the cover. Yep, I did pay $24.99. It was pre-ordered at ratio. A little concerned about this corner in the bag here. I hope it's not a dinged or blunted corner, but gorgeous cover here with Emma Frost, which I think is artists and Marvel's go-to character when they're thinking about adding some heat to a book. A couple of great books from Third Eye Comics there in that first order. And this is sort of the gamble with these retailer incentives, where I feel like one was a hit and one was a miss just in terms of paying that full ratio price. And if you want to stay to the end, I'll show you exactly what I paid for these. And then, I mean, it's not a shock. The 1 in 25s were $25. And I'll show you the next book, which is a 1 in 50. That was $50. But we can see how the current fair market value of these books compares to what I paid for. I don't know if any of these have any CGC value quite yet, but we'll check it out. So I did get a 1 in 50. This was the second order I placed all by itself. And as a collector of almost all things Adam Hughes, this is the full art 1 in 50 retailer incentive of Dark X-Men number 1. Now, this is a book where you can get it with the trade, and it's very easy to find, and they kind of just lazily created a retailer incentive without it. This happens from time to time, but was able to find this where even during the pre-order FOC frenzy, I think this book was being talked about as a potential great pickup, and really like this one. I mean, I would just say it's just typical Adam Hughes. I don't know how else to put it, but kind of what you'd expect from him. Okay, and then the last order, I would say maybe the jury is still out on these. Maybe it's not, based on current fair market value, hype, or buzz or anything like that. These are just, I'd say maybe right down the middle, where they're probably not full ratio in terms of value, but certainly not books that I regret purchasing at all. I don't regret purchasing any of these, really, but all 3 of these are 1 in 25s, and let's start with Shazam number 3, and this is a 1 in 25 retailer incentive with cover art by Carla Cohen. Now, she's an amazing and fantastic artist. She's done a lot of work on books for Dynamite, and I think her style is just like hyper realistic. You can see there, like it almost looks like a photo. I mean, it's such a cool cover. So really was kind of a no-brainer when I saw this one. And the big two are starting to add some of the more like independent, or I don't know, like the publishers that typically would have artists that put out covers like these. Think of like Dynamite, Zenescope. You're starting to see some of those store exclusive and creators from those publishers end up on a DC or Marvel book. And so that is something else to kind of look out for, is when they kind of make the jump from those publishers into Marvel and DC. The covers that they produce are really top notch. So I wanted to get that one as someone who not necessarily is a collector of Cohen covers, but definitely kind of understood her impact potentially to this book and wanted to get it. I just thought it was a beautiful cover. The next one, big fan of his, Dan Panosian. This is the 1 in 25 retailer incentive for World's Finest Teen Titans #3. Sort of like a corner box homage, kind of like the old school upper left corner character box. Almost like a movie poster style. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to describe this one, but I just really liked it. I thought that the way that Panosian depicted each of the characters, he's got some of them looking at you straight on, some of them looking off to the side. And I was really, really just drawn to this one and wanted to get it as a fan and supporter of Panosian. And then the last book is probably one that is similar to like the Cohen book, where you kind of have to jump on the wave of folks that are following a specific artist. This is Dark X-Men #2, the 1 in 25 retailer incentive, with cover art by Pablo Villalobos. And this one has heated up a little bit, I believe. I think some people don't really like it or think his other covers are better, but it is one of those that you kind of have to keep your eye out for, because there are certain artists that are affiliated with some online stores where collectors and speculators will really kind of talk up these types of artists and these types of books. And what I like to do is make sure I have some of them so that I can kind of, again, ride that wave of value as they all kind of really hype up and over advertise and over speculate on some of these types of artists and books. Now, I'm well aware of Lobos. I don't think this is his greatest cover, but I think it is a very, very good one. And this is probably an example of me being a little bit more strategic, whereas something like this was just like, wow, I love this. I love the kind of the old school character box type of look. I think this one really is just more of an appreciation of the artist for me. And this is more of an appreciation of those that appreciate that artist, if that makes sense. But now what I want to see is if the prices I paid for these make sense if you compare them to fair market value. So let's take a look at the order summary. All right, here is the order summary for all 3 orders that I placed with Third Eye Comics between July 13th and August 18th, 2023. 3 separate orders of retailer incentives. And as I mentioned earlier, I paid at ratio for all of these, $5 shipping per order. And so I distributed the $5 across any of the books that were in each order and applied it to my total cost. So you can see here in column Z, total cost of a $24.99 retailer incentive is around $26.66 and goes up if there are fewer books in the shipment. So the interesting part to me here, first of all, there are no graded values. These books are too new. If they have been sent out for professional grading, the online price guides, we don't have data on these books yet. So all I have to go by here is column U, which is the cover price fair market value for these books. And I think the question that I would ask myself is, if I really wanted these specific 6 retailer incentives, what is the best thing to do in terms of pre-ordering, waiting, watching a book maybe get hyped and the price get driven up? Do you pass on the book? Do you buy it when the price is high? If you really want it, does that matter? And what I want to do is just go over the numbers, right? Take the emotion out of it for a second, where you're like, oh man, I have to have that World's Finest Teen Titans #3 by Dan Panosian. I love it. It's great. Fair market value on that book is $12. I spent with shipping $26.66. So when we look at the raw value add here, it's all negative for the most part. So as you can kind of see, yes, you can make the assumption it's best to wait, right? So what I'm trying to do is show you what I paid for these books so that you can kind of see and learn and look at how the market reacts to these things, where there's a lot of hype, PR, advertising around these incentives and around store exclusives, but they just end up not panning out. But then take a look at Immortal X-Men number 15. That was a $25 1 in 25 at ratio I paid, and picked up a little heat. And the fair market value of that book is $45. So, makes you want to grab this book, go on YouTube and say, look how smart I am. I'm the smartest comic book collector in all the land. But in reality, I had to buy some of the other books and be wrong a lot. I mean, I was essentially 1 out of 6. I think that the tough one is the 1 in 50 Dark X-Men #1 by Hughes. I pre-ordered that book because I had to pay $5 shipping just for that single book. So it was $55 for me to acquire it. And the current fair market value is $53. So about the same, a $2 loss there. So it's not that I should or shouldn't have pre-ordered it. I basically paid the fair market value for the book, whether I bought it back in mid-July or I bought it at the end of September. It doesn't really matter. But let's do some calculations here. If I summarize the fair market value of these books, having a value right now of $154, and then I take the sum of what I paid for all of them, just the total of the 3 orders, which I understand includes shipping, but still, it's my total cost. It's $190. So if you just think about that for a second, like if you really want these books, then what would you do? If these were the 6 incentives that you had to have, these were the ones you had your heart set on, you had your wallet set on, even if you're paying arguably double ratio for the Immortal X-Men number 15, the Emma Frost sway cover, and you're paying fair market value for the 1 in 50 Adam Hughes, you're still better off waiting. It's still okay to pay at ratio or even double ratio instead of pre-ordering a handful of retailer incentives and hoping that most of them hit, all of them hit. They're not all going to hit. I think the Lobos Dark X-Men 2 is a good example of a book that really, when you look at what speculators are doing and how they have relationships now, they're on YouTube shows and you've got owners of the store appearing on YouTube shows, and now we've got speculators also working for price guys. Like, there's all of these things that are happening behind the scenes where that Dark X-Men #2, 1 in 25, should have been somewhere close to double ratio, but it didn't. It just didn't happen. It didn't pop. It's $18. It's certainly more than Shazam 3 or the World's Finest Teen Titans #3, the Panosian variant. And the World Tree one was the worst, $11 for that 1 in 25, and I paid almost $28 for it. So even the ones that you think are a sure thing, it's not always the case. So I think it's really difficult as a collector to take a step back. And if you see a book like, oh, it's a 1 in 25, it's a 1 in 50, I have to have it. I know that's going to be just a slam dunk. That's going to be the book to have. It very well could be, but unless you're going to be gambling and betting on that one book every time and not a handful, well, then it's kind of all in on that one book being a hit or not. But if you want to hedge your bets a little bit and say, well, out of this stack of incentives, I think a couple of them should probably be popular, you're more likely to hit, but it's going to cost you more to get the wins. So it just makes sense to wait. It makes sense to wait. Like I said, I love all of these books. I think all 6 are great comics. They're great incentives. They're tied into characters, creators, and stories that I love. So I have no problem with owning them. And I'm not talking about these in terms of investment. I'm talking about just spending your money wisely. And in this case, we're talking about a difference of about $35, roughly 20% difference between pre-ordering and the price and the prices of the books and the cost involved with pre-ordering versus just waiting and buying all of these books later. But there's something as a collector where you're like, why am I paying double or triple ratio for this book when I could have pre-ordered it? Yes, but did you know that that was the one book that was going to hit? You're better off waiting. But it's something as a collector where you're like, I'm paying double or triple ratio for this book. There's just something about like, I can't do that. I've got to be able to find the deal ahead of time. But if you can get over that emotion and just go ahead and pay it later, because if you want the book and you have to have it at double or triple ratio, it doesn't feel right. But overall, it makes more sense, and it makes more financial sense, that it's a better use of your time and money. Let me know what you think of these books, or the whole retailer incentive process, or buying these. Do you pre-order? Do you wait? Does it matter? Is this just a cash grab? What do you do? How do you collect? Leave me a comment below. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time. Instead of pre-ordering a handful and hoping